Hey guys, Jay Hoyt here. Before we get into today's video, as always at the start of these videos, we are telling you guys the vast majority of guys are not subscribed. So if you enjoy my content or if you're just brand new to my channel and you like what you're seeing, make sure to go down below, hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications so you never miss an upload, and don't forget, you can always change your mind later. What's going on, guys? Jay Hoyt back with you today. Welcome back to NHL 22. We are back on Hockey Ultimate Team, and we have one of our first games with finally our full roster. No more bronze players, no more silver players. Now we just have all golds, and it's actually a pretty decent team and an upgraded one from probably the last time you saw them. But today, we wanted to get back into the real NHL, right? NHL 22's been out. We've been kind of playing a little bit off camera, checking out some stuff, and of course, I wanted to bring some more videos to you. So, like I said, we are back on Hockey Ultimate Team today. But here's the thing, right? There's been a lot of trade rumors going around about a lot of different players that may not have had the greatest preseasons or start to the year, and everyone, of course, is speculating trades around those players. Well, we're going to take all those players, put him to the side, because there's one player that's been in the trade talks for a while now, and that's going to be Buffalo Sabres captain Jack Eichel. Now, here's the thing. There's been lots of teams that have been poking around and have been reported to be interested in him, but of course, there's one big key thing, and that is his injury. I think it has to do with his neck, and he has something to do with a disc or something in his neck. I don't remember the exact injury, I'm sorry, but either way, he's injured and not currently playing, and of course, him not playing means a big loss for Buffalo. So here's some interesting trades that I found that could potentially go through to a couple different teams, and actually we have two different teams in this one, but three to the same team. So let's start with the first trade, which I think a couple of these I have a graphic for, some of them I don't, so I'm sorry if I don't, but if not, it'll be on your screen now. But the first trade is Jack Eichel going to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for Alex Tuch, who is basically a top 9 winger, but he is currently on the IR as well. Forward prospect Brendan Brisson. I think he's playing in college right now, I believe I saw. Chandler Stevenson, who's like a top 9 center, who is their, I guess, #1 center right now. But he is a really kind of like underrated center, but isn't really like a superstar, but he's like good, I guess. I don't really know how to explain him. As well as a couple of first round picks from this upcoming year and then the following year. So 2022 and 2023. So let's go over some of this trade, right? So the big one, the big thing here is going to be salary, right? Alex Tuch. Jack Eichel has, I think, a $10 million cap hit, or it's like 9.2 or something that you have to make up for. Alex Tuch is only like 4.75. Chandler Stevenson is only like 2.7. So you still got a little bit of discrepancies there as far as salary goes. So although on paper this doesn't really look like a horrible trade, right? Tuch could be in your top 6. Is a speedy winger and he's big, and like I said, has the size. Would I make this trade go through if I was Vegas? I don't know. I think that, a couple of these trades later on could be a better fit, for Vegas. They're giving up 2 other players that they kind of like a lot, as well as 2 first-round picks for the next 2 years. Most likely those are going to be after the 15th pick, so it's going to be a later first-round pick, just given that they're a playoff team like every single year so far, and they've been a really solid team every year. So giving up a later first-round pick isn't really going to hurt Vegas too much. It's just going to give them one less prospect in the draft. But, Brisson, they're pretty high on as well. I think he's like one of the top-rated prospects that Vegas has. So would this one go through? You could offer it, but I think there's a couple better trades that would work just a little bit better. Our second trade is also with Vegas in this one. And apparently Buffalo was very interested in getting forward prospect Peyton Krebs, who is arguably one of Vegas's best young players and prospects, if you will, even though I think he's in the NHL right now, but they might have sent him down. Like I said, I don't remember exactly what's going on with him, but either way, he's a really good young player that Buffalo definitely wanted in this trade if they were going to make one go through. So this trade that I saw was Peyton Krebs, who's a prospect winger, as well as I think it's Caden Korchek, something like that, who's a prospect defenseman, along with the same 2 first-round picks, the 2022 and 2023 first-round draft picks. Here's the thing, though. Peyton Krebs, really good young player. Caden Korchek, I don't really know too much about him, so I'm going to say, is a decent prospect at least. I don't think this is enough to get Jack Eichel. Obviously Krebs is a big part of this. 2 first-round picks could turn into who knows what. But then Korchek, I don't know too much about him, like I said. So if he is, a really good prospect, then it kind of changes my thoughts here. But, these 2 prospects plus 2 picks, again, I don't think it's enough for, Buffalo to pull the trigger and trade for this. I think they wanted a good young NHL forward along with a good prospect, another piece, and I think a couple of draft picks, I think was the asking price for Buffalo. So I don't know if this is enough to go through, although it's a decent idea with 2 really good prospects if Korchek is, what I think he is, and 2 really good prospects plus 2 first-round picks. But still, I don't think it's going to be enough for Buffalo to pull the trigger. The next trade is actually a different team. It's going to be the New York Rangers, one of the big teams that obviously was a big target for Buffalo and for Eichel to go to. And the proposed trade I saw was really kind of interesting. It has a similar effect to what our last trade is as well. So it's going to be Eichel to the Rangers for Philip Hedl, who is like a top 9 center. I think he's playing on their 3rd line right now, but I think he's still relatively young, so he still has room to grow. And especially with Buffalo rebuilding, he could be a pretty decent piece to put in there. Chris Kreider, who I listed as a top 9 winger. I think he's playing their first line right now, but obviously depending on what you need on your team and what your makeup is, he can move up and down, the top 9. Probably a top 6. I think actually I put top 6 here as well. So, obviously a good physical winger can put up some points, but don't expect him to be a superstar, but he's still a really good player. And then you also have, I think is it Niles Lundqvist, who's a prospect defenseman, arguably New York Rangers' best prospect. Obviously he's a big name in the prospect pool, and as well as a 2022 first-round draft pick and in the same year 2nd-round draft pick. So this year's 1st and 2nd round draft picks, along with 2 NHL forwards, a prospect, and 2 picks. So this is kind of what I expected to have as a potential trade in this one. So you have the good young player, you have someone for salary, aka or another NHL roster player, as well as a good prospect and 2 draft picks, either 2 first or 2 first and a second type trade. Now, this is probably the best trade yet out of the other 2 that we looked at. Obviously, Heido, good young player. Kreider can move up and down in that, play different roles. Like I said, not expecting him to be a superstar, getting point per game levels, but probably like 50, maybe 60 points on a good year. That's kind of what I expect out of him. Maybe he could get more if he's having a pretty good year, depending on where he's playing as well. And then Lundqvist, obviously a big name in the prospect pool. I could see this trade going through first and a second. Would that be enough to get it through? I feel like it'd be really close, depending on how the teams are doing at the time, and especially what Eichel wants, where he wants to go, because I think he has like a no move or no trade clause or something like that in his contract. So it looks like a good trade on paper. The Rangers, they'd be giving up a center and a top line winger in exchange, and defenseman and a pair of picks in exchange for a top line and a superstar level centerman. Now, would I have probably thrown Ryan Strome in this trade? Would they rather have him? Because here's the problem: they still have 2. Well, they already have Zibanejad. They already have Strome. One of those guys is gonna have to move down to the 3rd line, and with how much they love Mika Zibanejad, I don't feel like he'd be the one to move down unless one of those guys is going to move to the wing, or unless Eichel's going to play the wing. I mean, I don't really see that happening, so assuming they all stay at center, probably Strome would have to move down. Maybe he'd move to the wing. He should probably move to the wing more than anything, and depending on how their roster lays out, will depend on what would go on there. Plus, Eichel's going to be out for a while with the injury and rehabbing the injury anyway, and, of course, surgery and everything. So they wouldn't have to deal with that till maybe next year or later on this year. But here's and then the last trade, which is kind of a similar makeup to this last Rangers trade. It's from the Vegas Golden Knights. Again, a lot of them a lot of the mock trades I saw on a couple different websites all had Vegas in them. And this is the one that I kind of created of a similar template to that Rangers trade with a good young player, an NHL forward, a good prospect, and a couple of picks. It's like that, but a little bit different. So it would be Eichel and one other player. I picked Drake Caggiula in this one as just kind of a roster player that they probably wouldn't care too much about keeping or getting rid of, just kind of adding in for numbers' sake. Just to get one of these players back, just to have that, 13th forward type situation, so that way they can let their young players play in the AHL. Maybe they wouldn't want that. Maybe they'd send him down. Who knows what they'd do with him at the end of the day. But going down to make this trade work and going back to Buffalo would be Evgeny Dadonov, a top 9 winger. Had a rough year last year, but came off a couple of good years in Florida. Then we have Chandler Stevenson, who's been their number 1 center ever since he kind of got there. And they've had William Karlsson, right? He was expected to be the number 1 guy there. Fortunately or unfortunately, he got kind of pegged down to that second line with Marchessault and Smith, the Misfits line, I think they called them. So that line's pretty good. But then they have Pacioretty and Stone with, kind of like an underrated, if you will, center in the middle of them. And if you put Eichel in between Stone and Pacioretty, that could take both of their games to the next level. Pacioretty could get back in that, on MVP form. It could take Stone's, play to another level, and could definitely create Eichel as their number 1 superstar guy, no question about it. And this trade would go pretty good. So it'd be Eichel and Caggiula for Dadonov, Stevenson. Then I threw in Janmark in this one as well. So the reason I threw these 3 forwards in there and not anyone else was because salary-wise, these 3 players make up almost close, if not exactly, what Eichel would be making. So Dadonov's at like $5 million, Stevenson's at like 2.75, Janmark is at like $2 million. So overall, it's close. It's really, really close as far as numbers go. Again, it would be, like I said, really, really close. But also in this trade would be a 2022 first-round pick, and then either a prospect or another pick. And then this one is kind of all up to what, Buffalo would want. Although there's no prospects in this deal would be the only kind of downfall of this trade. That's why I kind of threw this at the end. If they wanted to throw a prospect in there, because they get 3 players out of this realistically, a top 9 winger, top 9 forward, bottom 9 forward. If you throw in a prospect in here, that'd be 4 pieces there. Maybe you throw in a first, maybe a second in there. And, is that enough? Is that not enough? Is it perfect? I guess any Buffalo fans out there or even Vegas fans would be, what do you guys think? Would this be too much? Not enough? What would you throw in this trade? We have 4 potential options here. A couple of them were on your screen. A couple of them you'll just have to take as what I said. And a couple of these would be very interesting to see. Obviously, Eichel on Vegas would probably take this team to the next level, right? They've always been a good team since they've been formed and since they've gotten their team. And every upgrade they've made along the way so far has been huge. Obviously, they made a tough decision in goal to try to create some salary. But, Fleury's gone now. They have barely any salary to work with. So getting rid of 3 guys. Dadonov has 1 more year left on his contract. Stevenson still has like 2 or 3, I think, years on his. Janmark is a UFA at the end of the year. Obviously, Eichel is signed long-term at a big deal. So, you have a superstar level player for a while. And, this would be a very interesting time for Eichel to be traded, especially given how good Vegas is right now and how good they could, how good he could take Vegas to the next level and have a superstar in there playing along. They have a really good top 6 at that point. Top 4 defense is pretty solid overall with Theodore and Pietrangelo. And then in goal, you have Leonard, who's been, I don't want to say underrated for all of his career, but pretty much underrated for all of his career. And now that Fleury's gone, he's got no one to platoon with. Now he's just got himself. So Will any of these trades go through? I think the bottom two would, with the Rangers trade and the last Vegas trade. I said, with a couple of tweaks probably here and there. But this one, will it happen? Who knows? Would I like it to happen? Obviously, as a Vegas fan, I'd love to have it happen, just numbers-wise, player-wise. Hopefully, he would get his surgery, get back as soon as possible. And the only bad thing about this trade, though, is Vegas would be that last trade would be Vegas trading away 3 NHL players and getting only 1 back until Eichel had his surgery. So that'd be the only downfall of this trade. Once Eichel gets the surgery and gets healthy again, maybe you could revisit this. But until you either know that this would go through or until Eichel's healthy, you probably have to put a pause on these trade talks. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and comments, so down in that comment section below. But that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy, hit that like button down below if you haven't yet, or if you're brand new here, make sure to subscribe, turn those post notifications on so you never miss an upload, and don't forget, you can always change your mind later. But with all that being said, guys, we'll see you in the next one.